$1.4 trillion. That's how much money was promised to American retirees that simply isn't there. Not maybe isn't there, not might not be there, isn't there. You worked 30 years. You paid into your pension every single paycheck. They promised you $3,000 a month for life. The money is gone. Detroit, 2013, pension collapse. Stage 7 complete. Retirees took 4.5% cuts, plus lost all cost of living adjustments forever. Illinois, 2024, pension collapse in progress. $140 billion shortfall. Stage 5 of 7. Timeline to bankruptcy, 3 years. New Jersey, Connecticut, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, 2025 to 2027. Next wave incoming. 6 major pension funds projected to hit insolvency within 36 months. And the United States as a whole? We're at stage 5 of a 7-stage collapse pattern that plays out identically every single time. Detroit proved the pattern exists. Illinois is proving it's repeating. The next wave will prove it's accelerating. Here's what pension apocalypse actually looks like. Pension collapse doesn't happen overnight. It follows 7 precise stages, and once you understand the pattern, you can see it playing out across America right now. Stage 1. Chronic underfunding. Politicians skip required contributions. We'll pay it next year becomes we'll pay it next decade. Stage 2. Optimistic assumptions. Pension funds assume 7 to 8% investment returns when reality delivers 5 to 6%. They'd assume demographics won't change when populations are aging rapidly. Stage 3. The gap widens. Unfunded liability grows exponentially. Funded ratios drop below 80%. Negative cash flow begins. Payouts exceed contributions plus investment returns. Stage 4. Desperate measures. Pension costs consume 20 to 40% of the budget. Cities cut police, fire departments, schools. Taxes get raised. Governments borrow money to pay pensions, creating a debt-death spiral. Stage 5. Critical status. Funded ratio drops below 60%. Governments can't pay both pensions and basic services. Credit ratings collapse to junk status. State intervention arrives. Stage 6. Bankruptcy filing. Out of options. Chapter 9 for cities. Constitutional crisis for states, because states can't legally declare bankruptcy. Stage 7. Pension cuts. Court-ordered benefit reductions. 10 to 50% cuts to retirees. Cost of living adjustments eliminated. Healthcare benefits slashed. The promise gets broken. The pattern is invisible at first, then it accelerates, then it's too late. Let me show you. Detroit was once America's 4th largest city. Population 1.8 million in 1950. Home of the auto industry, the arsenal of democracy. By 2013, population had collapsed to 700,000. 60% of the peak population simply gone. And with them went the tax base that was supposed to fund those pensions. Stage 1. Chronic underfunding, 1990s to 2000s. Required pension contributions were routinely skipped. The city council prioritized other spending. Year after year, the refrain was, "We'll catch up when the economy improves." By 2000, Detroit's pensions were already significantly underfunded. They just did it well. Stage 2. Optimistic assumptions, 2000 to 2008. Detroit assumed 8% investment returns every single year. When the 2008 market crash hit, the pension funds lost 35 to 40% of their assets virtually overnight. Did they update their assumptions? No. They kept projecting 8% returns into a 2% world. Stage 3. The gap widens, 2008 to 2011. By 2011, Detroit faced a $3.5 billion unfunded pension liability. The General Employees Fund was 64% funded. Police and Fire was 77% funded. Annual pension costs exceeded $300 million. The budget simply couldn't sustain it. Contributions plus investment returns couldn't cover payouts. Negative cash flow had begun. Stage 4. Desperate measures, 2011 to 2013. Detroit cut its police force by 40%. Cut the fire department by 30%. Turned off streetlights in 40% of the city to save money. An emergency manager was appointed by the state, effectively a takeover. And here's the death spiral. Detroit borrowed money to make pension payments, adding debt on top of debt to pay for promises they couldn't afford. Stage 5. Critical status, 2013. Total debt reached $18 billion, with $7 billion in pension obligations alone. Detroit could only pay 35 cents per dollar owed. Police response times averaged 58 minutes, compared to a national average of 11 minutes. Basic services had collapsed. The city was functionally dead. Stage 6. Bankruptcy filing, July 18, 2013. Detroit filed for the largest municipal bankruptcy in American history. $18.5 billion in debt. The nation watched. The judge ruled that pensions could be cut, a decision that shocked everyone who believed pensions were constitutionally protected. Detroit spent 18 months in bankruptcy. Stage 7. Pension cuts, 2014. General employees took a 4.5% cut to their monthly benefits. All cost of living adjustments were eliminated permanently. Police and firefighters took smaller cuts but also lost COLAs forever. The average retiree lost $10,000 to $15,000 in lifetime benefits. One retired teacher said, "They told us pensions were protected. They told us we'd sacrificed higher salaries for retirement security. They lied." Detroit emerged from bankruptcy in 2014. The city survived, but retirees carry those cuts for life. And Detroit established the blueprint. Pensions can be cut. The promise can be broken. Other cities were watching. Illinois is the fifth largest state economy in America. 6 major pension systems, more than 600,000 current and retired members, and a state constitution that says pension benefits shall not be diminished or impaired. The Constitution doesn't matter when the math stops working. Stage 1. Chronic underfunding, 1990s to 2010s. Illinois pioneered pension holidays. Politicians simply skipped required contributions for years. They borrowed against pension funds. They used pension money to balance the budget. By 2010, Illinois had engaged in decades of systematic underfunding. Stage 2. Optimistic assumptions, 2000 to 2015. Illinois assumed 7.5 to 8% returns consistently. They ignored the 2008 crash impact. They assumed a political solution would magically emerge. They never adjusted assumptions to reality. Stage 3. The gap widens, 2010 to 2024. Watch the acceleration, 2010, $80 billion unfunded liability, the worst in the nation. 2015, $111 billion despite economic recovery. 2020, $144 billion, accelerating rapidly. 2024, $140 billion plus, with modest improvement but still critical. The funded ratio sits at 40 to 45%, the worst in the nation. Stage 4. Desperate measures, 2015 to 2024. Pension costs now consume 25% of the state budget. Illinois has a backlog of $15 billion in unpaid bills. The state's credit rating is near junk status, the lowest of any state in America. Income taxes were raised from 3.75% to 4.95%. Education, healthcare, and infrastructure were slashed. And 1 million residents left the state between 2010 and 2020. People voting with their feet. Stage 5. Critical status, 2024 to present. The teacher's pension fund could run out of money in just 13 years. All 6 other funds are at crisis levels. Illinois is paying over $10 billion annually just in pension costs. The state cannot cut pensions because of the Constitution. Cannot raise taxes more because people are fleeing. Cannot borrow more because credit is maxed out. Illinois is trapped in a doom loop. Stage 6. Projected bankruptcy, 2027 to 2030. States can declare Chapter 9 bankruptcy like cities can, but states can default on obligations. They can petition Congress for restructuring. Illinois faces a constitutional crisis within 3 to 5 years. Stage 7. Projected pension cuts, 2030s. This will require a constitutional amendment, federal intervention, or state-level default where Illinois simply says, "We can't pay." Estimates suggest 30 to 50% cuts are likely. Illinois is at Stage 5 in progress. Stage 6 is visible on the horizon. There's no political will to solve this, and the math says collapse is inevitable. Just like Detroit, exact same stages, just faster. This isn't just Detroit. This isn't just Illinois. Multiple states are approaching the same crisis, following the exact same pattern. Total U.S. state and local pension shortfall, $1.4 trillion, and the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, the federal pension insurance program, has a projected 90% chance of bankruptcy by 2026. New Jersey, Over $200 billion in unfunded liability. Funded ratio around 55%. Pension costs consume more than 20% of the budget. Credit rating your junk. Population exodus accelerating. Timeline. 6 of 7 pension funds projected to reach insolvency by 2027, according to state projections. That's 24 months away. Connecticut. Funded ratio around 50%. Pension costs are devouring the budget. Young people are leaving the state. The population is aging. No easy solutions exist. Kentucky. Funded ratio at 45%. The state already cut benefits for new hires. Existing retirees now have benefits at risk. And Kentucky is a rural state with a shrinking tax base. California. CalPERS is the largest pension fund in America. Over $100 billion in unfunded liability. Multiple California cities have already declared bankruptcy: Stockton, San Bernardino. The state itself is at stage 3 to 4. Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Colorado. All below 65% funded. All approaching stage 5. Here's the pattern. Stages 1 through 3 are already complete. Decades of underfunding, check. Optimistic assumptions, check. Widening gap, check. Stage 4 is in progress right now. Cutting services, raising taxes, borrowing to pay pensions. Stage 5 arrives in the next 2 to 3 years. Critical status, intervention, functional collapse. Stages 6 and 7 hit between 2027 and 2030. Bankruptcy and cuts. At the federal level, the PBGs had a $51 billion deficit as of 2018. The multi-employer program has a 90% chance of insolvency by 2026. 1,400 multi-employer pension plans are at risk. Over 1 million workers and retirees affected. Congress must decide whether to bail them out. Here's the acceleration. Detroit took over 20 years from 1990 to 2013. Illinois has shown 15 years of visible decline from 2010 to 2025. The next wave will collapse in just 3 to 5 years, from 2024 to 2029. The pattern is accelerating. Let's apply those 7 stages to America as a whole. See where we are in the pattern. Stage 1. Chronic underfunding, check, complete. This has been happening since the 1980s and 1990s. Decades of skipped contributions. We'll catch up later never happened. Stage 2. Optimistic assumptions, check, complete. Most pension funds still assume 7 to 7.5% returns when reality delivers about 6% long-term. Demographic assumptions are wrong, people are living longer, birth rates are falling, and the ratio of workers to retirees is collapsing. Stage 3. The gap widens, check, complete. $1.4 trillion aggregate shortfall as of 2024. There are 299 state pension plans and 5,977 local pension plans across America. Average funded ratio is 77.9%, down from 84.8% in 2021. That's the largest decline since the Great Recession. Stage 4. Desperate measures, check, complete in many states. Pension costs average 20% of municipal budgets nationwide. Some cities are up to 40% of their budget going to pensions. Services are being cut, police, fire, schools. Taxes are being raised, property, income, sales. And governments are issuing pension obligation bonds, borrowing money to pay pension promises, which adds debt to pay debt. Stage 5. Critical status, check. In progress right now. 20 states have pension plans less than 2/3 funded. 5 states have plans less than 50% funded. Illinois, New Jersey, Kentucky, and Connecticut are all at crisis levels. The worker-to-retiree ratio was 5.1 workers per retiree in 1960. It fell to 3.0 in 2009. It's projected to hit just 2.1 by 2030. The math doesn't work anymore. Stage 6. Bankruptcy filing, next. Timeline, 2025 to 2027. Detroit proved it's possible. Other cities have already followed: Stockton, San Bernardino, Central Falls. States can declare bankruptcy under current law, but states can default. Illinois and New Jersey are 3 to 5 years away. Stage 7. Pension cuts, coming. Timeline, 2027 to 2030 and beyond. Once bankruptcy gets, cuts follow. Courts will allow it. Detroit set the precedent. Estimates range from 20 to 50% cuts, depending on the state. 47 million Americans depend on state and local pensions. Most have no other retirement savings. We've completed stages 1 through 4. We're deep into stage 5. Stages 6 and 7 are visible on the horizon. America is at stage 5 of 7 in a pension collapse pattern. So what do the next stages look like? Stage 6 arrives first for the weakest states. New Jersey's projections show 6 of 7 pension funds hitting insolvency by 2027. That's not a political prediction. That's actuarial math. Illinois isn't far behind. When the money runs out, states face a choice: default on pensions, default on bondholders, or petition the federal government for restructuring. States cannot declare Chapter 9 bankruptcy like municipalities. There's no legal framework. So what happens? Constitutional crisis, federal intervention, emergency managers, lawsuits that go to the Supreme Court over whether pension promises can be broken. Stage 7 follows inevitably. The cuts: courts will rule, just like in Detroit, that mathematics override constitutional protections. You can't pay what you don't have. Estimates suggest cuts ranging from 20% in better-funded states to 50% in the worst cases. Who gets cut? Everyone. Teachers who spent 30 years in classrooms. Police officers who work the streets. Firefighters who ran into burning buildings. All were promised security. All will take cuts. Timeline? The next 3 years determine everything. Between now and 2027, multiple major pension systems will hit insolvency. By 2030, the cuts begin in earnest. The worker-to-retiree ratio gets 2.1 by 2030. 2 workers supporting 1 retiree. The math breaks completely at that point. There aren't enough workers paying in to cover retirees taking out. Stages 6 and 7 aren't possibilities. They're inevitabilities. The only question is timing. $1.4 trillion shortfall. 47 million Americans depending on these pensions. That's $32,000 in unfunded promises per working American. You might be thinking, maybe we're different. Maybe we'll find a solution. Maybe the economy will boom and investment returns will save us. Detroit thought that. Illinois thought that. Every pension system in stage 5 thought that. The math doesn't care about hope. It doesn't care about promises. It doesn't care about constitutional protections or political will. Here's the math. In 1960, there were 5.1 workers per retiree. In 2009, there were 3.0 workers per retiree. By 2030, there will be 2.1 workers per retiree. You cannot run a pension system on those ratios. It's mathematically impossible. The Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation has a 90% chance of insolvency by 2026. That's next year. When the federal pension insurance goes bankrupt, there's no backstop left. The pattern says we're at stage 5. Detroit and Illinois prove that stages 6 and 7 follow. The acceleration says we have 3 years before multiple major systems collapse. If you don't pay your mortgage, you lose your house in 90 days. Politicians didn't pay pension contributions for 30 years. They kept their jobs, their own pensions, everything. You're the one who will lose your retirement. The pension apocalypse isn't coming, it's here.